Hey guys, it's the Casual Woodsman. So coming up I have the very first knife review of my channel. We're going to be talking about the Ontario RD7 Bush. More on that in just a minute. Alright, so just a little bit of background on the RD7 Bush here. This is a little different than the original Ranger series in the Ontario Knife Company's tactical category. They originally designed as very heavy use, very indestructible tactical knives by Justin Gingrich, who was a former Army Ranger. A lot of their knives come in 5160 steel. They're very beefy at about 1/4 inch thick, and there is a model that's the RD7, which is the standard model, that is about a 7.5 inch blade, 5160 steel, 1/4 inch full flat ground. This is an RD7 Bush. It's pretty much the same knife except for, I do believe this comes in 1095 steel and it's a 3/16 inch thick steel stock. So it's not quite as thick as the original Ranger series. Alright, so let's take a look at what this can do and determine to see if this is going to be a good survival knife or a good woods or bush knife for somebody looking to get a good woods and bush knife. Now, this was a very lucky find for me. This was an eBay find. They are discontinued now. They are no longer available from anywhere that I've noticed. A lot of the online knife shops don't even list it in their product catalogs anymore. But if you can find one, these are great. And there are some models in the Ranger series that are still available even now, which I actually do plan to talk about in an upcoming video. So we'll take a look at some of those and see if that's going to be something worth having also. Alright, so let's take a look at what this can do. Alright, so first things first. I am going to run the standard gamut of tests that we normally use to test some of these survival knives out. And obviously, the philosophy of use and applications for such a knife like this might be different for all of you guys watching. Also, I don't want to hear in the comments about why am I batoning with a knife. Hey, it happens. It's a good use for a knife. Get over it. Alright, so to show you some of the tests, I have a big piece of longleaf pine right here. It's probably not going to be the hardest wood out there, but this piece is big enough and dense enough that it's probably a good representation of what you're likely to find out in a woods environment or camping or something similar. So I'm going to go ahead and use this piece of wood to demonstrate what this knife is capable of doing. I'm also using a rubber mallet as a baton instead of another log or another piece of wood, just because normally this is going to be your safest option to keep from damaging your blade, and I just happen to have one on me. So let's see what this knife can do against, it's about a 6 inch by 4 inch piece of longleaf pine. Let's see if this knife will baton through it. Oops, kind of hit the tripod there. But as you can see, it did baton through that piece of wood no problem. There was even a knot near the bottom of it. It went right through it. Piece of cake. Alright, so the next test we're going to do is slicing and feather sticking. I know it's kind of a cliche, but it seems to be what all the YouTube reviews are using, so I'm going to use the same standard. So, first of all, it does have a really comfortable choil here that you can kind of use to choke up on the blade. And it's getting some really beautiful shavings off of this stick right here. Now, it's getting some really good shavings. Some really nice paper thin curls, so obviously the edge on this knife is going to be really good for some of that finer work, and it's going to be really good to be able to get some kind of kindling going. Now, they didn't necessarily stay together on the stick that I was using to carve them from, but the quality of these curls is actually really good, so this is going to be excellent in that regard as well. Let's do a tip test. Now this stump that I'm using right here is actually an old piece of ash, so this is a very hard, dense piece of wood that I'm using. It's getting a lot of really good bite into the wood. Really comfortable handle. I don't really feel a lot of hot spots. Of course, I do use gloves most of the time anyway. Really good bite, and absolutely zero damage to the edge or the tip of this knife doing some stabbing. As far as chopping bite, that's some really good bite on this log right here. So let's try a chop test using that same longleaf pine from before. Pretty good, no problem. So what's really good about this knife is that it's really well balanced. It's not particularly handle heavy, nor is it particularly blade heavy. So even though it doesn't feel like a good chopper, there's enough weight behind it to where it gets some really good bite on whatever it is that you're trying to chop. The handle itself isn't uncomfortable at all, but I am wearing gloves, so maybe I should try it without the gloves and just see what that same exercise feels like. So even without the gloves, it's actually not uncomfortable to use at all. The handles are rather blocky, but they're not necessarily uncomfortable to use. So some people may not like the blockiness of the handles. I personally don't mind it so much. It fits my hand really well. I do have medium to large size hands. I wear a large, typically, or sometimes a medium sized glove. And this knife fits in my hand rather comfortably, so I don't find any hot spots on it whatsoever. All right, so basically just in some of the testing that I've done here in the backyard without having taken it out into the woods or to the bush for some real world situations, so far I can safely tell you that this is an excellent survival blade. For me personally, it feels great. It's balanced. The size of it is just right. It's pretty good for some light chopping. It's pretty good for some shaving and feather sticking and some other lighter tasks. Considering the ergonomics of the choil here and the way the handle is shaped, you can choke up on that if you're comfortable doing so, and you can get some of that control. The weight in my hand is actually really nice. It's a heavier blade, but it doesn't feel like a heavy blade. It's really balanced. It feels really fast just in the hand overall. And I mean, other than the shape of the handle, which some people may not like, I personally find this to be an excellent survival blade. We'll see how well the powder coat finish lasts on this knife once I really start to use it regularly and really putting some hard use on it. But for now, it looks like it's holding up really well. There's no real chips or scuffs on the finish other than some of this wood debris that's just stuck to the blade. But other than that, everything looks great. The edge held up really well. I don't see any chips or rolls in it whatsoever. The tip held up really well. There's no deformity, there's no chipping or rolling on the edge of this either. Again, for it being 1095, 1095 is a steel that I'm very familiar with and I know can be very reliable out in the bush. It can be a great steel for survival knives. So for me personally, this knife is going to be an excellent choice if you do happen to find one still somewhere. Now, the little brother of this knife, the Ontario RD6, is probably going to be an even better choice for those of you that would consider something like that, because they are still available, so they're easier to find. And for most people, the smaller size, it's about an inch smaller, maybe 3/4 to a full inch smaller than this. The size may be a little bit more manageable for your personal preference. I personally don't mind a big blade like this, and actually this is closer to 8 inches when I did measure it from the edge of the micarta slab here all the way to the tip. It's about 7.85 or so inches. So it is a longer blade. I personally don't mind it, but if you like something a little shorter, the RD6 might be more your style, which I'll review in an upcoming video. But so far, I have nothing but good things to say about the RD7 Bush. I love this knife so far. I'm really anxious for some of our state parks to reopen again so I can go out there in the woods and really beat on this for a couple days out on the trail. And maybe I can give you an updated review of this once I get that done. In the meantime, guys, if there's anything else that you want me to review, if there's any other piece of equipment that you're curious about, just let me know in the comments. Let me know what you think of this. If you guys have any other experience with the Ontario RD7 Bush or even the RD7, let me know in the comments also. I'd love to hear from you guys. All right, guys. Once again, this has been the Casual Woodsman. As always, guys, be safe out there, be prepared, and I'll see you next time. Casual Woodsman out.